The notification buzzed against my palm, vibrating weakly through the hospital blanket. I thought it was another update from my doctor, maybe a reminder for my next round of medication. Instead, I saw the words that made my stomach drop. Your services are no longer required. We've cleared out your workstation. Don't return, no greeting, no explanation, no humanity. My name is Ryan Foster, 48 years old, and I was reading my termination notice while lying in a hospital bed recovering from a stress-induced cardiac episode. You know that feeling when something hits you so hard you wonder if you're still dreaming? That was me, blinking at my phone like it was going to change what I was seeing. I'd been Senior Infrastructure Director at Apex Solutions for 14 years. 14 years of my life poured into that place. I started there when I was 34, fresh from my divorce, trying to build something stable for my kids. Now here I was getting fired via text message while hooked up to a heart monitor. The thing is, I wasn't even supposed to be in the hospital for anything serious. Just some chest pains that turned out to be stress-related. My doctor said I'd been pushing too hard, working too many late nights, carrying too much weight on my shoulders. Guess I know what was causing all that stress now. Jessica Palmer, CEO of Apex Solutions. A woman who once told me, "You're the backbone of our operations, Ryan." Apparently backbones are disposable when it's convenient. The message came from her personal phone too, not even through HR, like she couldn't wait to get rid of me. Across the room, another patient let out this knowing sigh. I hadn't really paid attention to her since they wheeled her in about an hour earlier. Middle-aged woman, looked like she'd just come out of surgery but was pretty alert for someone with an IV drip. "Rough news?" she asked. Her voice was steady, professional even. I couldn't help but laugh, but not in a good way. "I just got fired from a hospital bed." She raised her eyebrows. "Now that's impressive in the worst possible way." Listen, I'm not usually the type to share personal business with strangers, but something about lying in matching hospital gowns makes you feel like you're in the same boat, you know? So I turned my phone toward her so she could see the message. Her eyes scanned it once, and then something changed in her expression. Not pity, which I was expecting, but recognition. "I know that tone," she said quietly. "Jessica Palmer." That got my attention real quick. "How do you know Jessica?" She gave me this small smile that made me think she knew something I didn't. "I'm Nicole Harper." The name hit me like they'd shocked my heart back to life. Nicole Harper, CEO of Harper Industries, the company that had been Apex Solutions' biggest competitor for the last decade. The woman Jessica spent half her time complaining about and the other half trying to copy. And here she was in the bed next to mine looking at the text message that had just ended my career. "You want to talk about timing?" For the first time since I'd woken up in this place, I started thinking maybe this whole situation wasn't just bad luck. Maybe it was something else entirely. Nicole leaned back against her pillows, still watching me. "Ryan," she said, and somehow she already knew my name. "It seems your company just made a very expensive mistake." Now, I've been in corporate America long enough to know when someone's fishing and when they're serious. Nicole Harper wasn't fishing. She was serious, and that made me pay attention in a way I hadn't in years. You know, I said 14 years I've been there. Started in their network security department when they had maybe 200 employees, watched them grow to over 2,000, built their entire infrastructure from the ground up. "I know," she said simply. And the crazy thing was, I believed her. People at Nicole's level don't just know random directors at competitor companies unless those directors matter, unless they've been watching. "My portfolio alone brings in about $75 million a year," I continued. 18 major contracts, about 30 smaller ones. Most of those clients have been with us for over a decade, and they didn't stay because of Jessica Palmer's charm, I can tell you that much. Nicole nodded like she was filing that information away. "And those clients trust you, not the company name on the building." It wasn't a question. She already knew the answer. You see, that's the thing about working in IT infrastructure for manufacturing companies. It's not like selling widgets or managing social media campaigns. These are relationships built over years of 3 a.m. emergency calls, of understanding legacy systems that nobody else wants to touch, of being the guy who shows up when everything's on fire and somehow puts it out. When Morrison Logistics had that ransomware attack 3 years ago, who do you think they called? Not Jessica Palmer's office. They called me directly. When Delta Ridge Manufacturing needed to upgrade their entire network without shutting down production, who designed the phased rollout that saved them $2 million in downtime? That was me. I've got clients who've been asking for me by name for years, I told Nicole. Their IT directors have my personal cell phone. When they have problems, they don't call the main office. They call me. Exactly, Nicole said. And Jessica just fired the person those clients actually trust. The heart monitor next to my bed kept beeping its steady rhythm, but inside my chest, something was starting to shift. Not the cardiac thing, the stress. For the first time in 14 years, I wasn't worried about letting Apex Solutions down, because apparently, they'd already let me go. Nicole closed her eyes for a moment like she was thinking through something important. When she opened them again, she was looking at me differently. Ryan, she said, I think we need to talk. The next morning, I woke up feeling like someone had hit the reset button on my brain. Don't get me wrong, my chest still hurt and I was still hooked up to more machines than I cared to count, but something had shifted overnight. Maybe it was finally getting some decent sleep, or maybe it was that conversation with Nicole Harper. You know how sometimes you wake up and the thing that seemed impossible the night before suddenly doesn't seem so crazy? That's where I was. Nicole was already awake when I opened my eyes, sitting up in her bed like she'd been waiting for me to join the land of the living. She had a notebook balanced on her lap and was writing something down with the kind of focus that told me this wasn't a grocery list. You didn't sleep much either, I said. She looked up and smiled. Hard to sleep when your mind's working overtime. But that's good. Means you're not giving up. Giving up wasn't really on my agenda, I told her. But I'll be honest with you, Nicole. Yesterday hit me harder than I expected. It's one thing to get fired. It's another thing entirely to get fired while you're lying in a hospital bed. She nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. It's the timing that makes it cruel, not just unprofessional. Exactly. I shifted in the bed, trying to find a position that didn't make my chest ache. And the thing is, I saw this coming. Not the hospital part, but the firing part. Jessica's been acting strange for months, short with me in meetings, cutting me out of decisions I should have been part of, bringing in consultants to review work my team had already completed. Classic signs of someone preparing to make you expendable, Nicole said, right? But I thought maybe if I just kept my head down, kept doing good work, it would blow over. My kids are in college, you know. My son's at Ohio State, daughter's at Penn State. I can't afford to be unemployed right now. Nicole set down her pen and looked at me directly. Ryan, can I ask you something? Shoot. In those 14 years at Apex, how many times did you save Jessica Palmer from her own mistakes? That was a hell of a question. I had to think about it for a minute, but once I started counting, the number was pretty embarrassing. Too many to count, I admitted. There was the time she approved a system upgrade without checking if it was compatible with our legacy software. Cost us 3 days of downtime before I figured out a workaround. Then there was the security breach that happened because she insisted we use a cheaper vendor I'd specifically warned her about. I spent 2 weeks cleaning up that mess. And did she ever acknowledge that publicly? I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Are you kidding? Every time I fixed one of her problems, somehow it became evidence of what a great leader she was for hiring such capable people. Nicole made a note in her book. So you've been propping up her reputation for 14 years, and the moment you're not there to clean up after her, what do you think happens? I'd been trying not to think about that, honestly. But lying there in that hospital bed with nothing but time to think, the answer was pretty obvious. Everything falls apart, I said. Everything falls apart, she agreed. And you know what the beautiful thing about that is? I'm not sure beautiful is the word I'd use. She smiled. It means you have leverage you don't even realize yet. Now that got my attention. What kind of leverage? The kind that comes from being irreplaceable, even when your boss thinks you're not. Nicole explained it to me like this. When you fire someone who's been holding your entire operation together, you don't just lose that person. You lose everything they represented. The relationships they built, the knowledge they accumulated, the trust they earned. And in a business like IT infrastructure, trust isn't something you can just transfer to the next guy. Your clients don't trust Apex Solutions, she said. They trust you. When Morrison Logistics needs something fixed, they're not calling the main office. They're calling Ryan Foster's direct line. She was right, and we both knew it. I'd been getting calls from clients on weekends for years. Not because Apex required it, but because they knew I'd pick up and I'd take care of whatever was wrong. So what happens when they can't reach Ryan Foster anymore? Nicole asked. They start asking questions. Exactly. And when they find out Ryan Foster was fired while recovering from a cardiac episode, how do you think they feel about doing business with a company that treats people that way? I hadn't thought about it from that angle, but she was right. These weren't just business relationships. A lot of these guys had become friends over the years. When Bob Morrison's father died, I drove 4 hours to attend the funeral. When Sarah Kim at Delta Ridge had her first baby, I sent flowers to the hospital. You don't just throw away relationships like that because some CEO sends a text message. You think they'd follow me if I went somewhere else? I asked. I don't think it, Nicole said. I know it. The question is, where would you go? And that's when she opened that notebook and showed me what she'd been writing. It wasn't notes about our conversation. It was a business plan, a detailed outline of how someone with my background and client relationships could fit into Harper Industries' growth strategy. I've been trying to break into Apex's market share for 3 years, she told me. But it's not about having better technology or lower prices. It's about relationships. It's about trust. And Jessica Palmer just handed me the one thing I couldn't buy at any price, which is you, Ryan. She handed me you. I stared at that notebook for a long time. Pages of strategies, organizational charts, financial projections, all centered around one basic idea, that the person who built Apex's infrastructure division could build something even better somewhere else. This isn't about revenge, Nicole said quietly. This is about recognizing opportunity when it hits you in the face. The heart monitor next to my bed was beeping steadier now. For the first time in months, my stress levels were actually going down instead of up. What exactly are you proposing? I asked. I'm proposing that when you're ready to get back to work, you don't go looking for another job. You come work with me and we build something that makes Jessica Palmer wish she'd never sent that text message. 2 days later, they finally let me out of that place. You know how hospitals are. They keep you just long enough to make sure you're not going to drop dead in the parking lot. Then they kick you out with a pile of prescriptions and instructions you're probably going to ignore. My daughter Sarah drove up from Penn State to take me home. 20 years old and already acting like she's my mother. Dad, you need to take it easy, she kept saying. The doctor said no stress for at least 2 weeks. No stress. Right. Like getting fired via text message while having a cardiac episode was the relaxing part of this whole experience. I'm fine, sweetheart, I told her as we pulled into my apartment complex. It was just a minor episode, stress-related. Exactly my point, she said, giving me that look that reminded me way too much of her mother. What's causing all this stress? You've been working at the same company for 14 years. It should be routine by now. How do you explain to your kid that the company you've spent their entire childhood supporting just threw you away like yesterday's newspaper? How do you tell them that the college tuition you've been paying might suddenly become a problem? Work stuff, I said. Nothing you need to worry about. She helped me up to my apartment, and that's when I saw it. A small envelope wedged between my door and the frame, my name written in neat handwriting that definitely wasn't from the Postal Service. Sarah went to put my things away while I opened the envelope. Inside was a business card, Harper Industries with Nicole Harper's name embossed in silver, and a handwritten note, call when you're ready to talk about the future instead of the past. NH. I stared at that card for longer than I probably should have. In the hospital, talking to Nicole had felt like some kind of fever dream. But here it was, real as the stack of medical bills I was probably going to get in a few weeks. Dad? Sarah called from the kitchen. There's no food in your fridge. When's the last time you went grocery shopping? Good question. Between 60-hour work weeks and whatever had been eating at me the past few months, basic life maintenance had kind of taken a back seat. I've been busy, I called back. Too busy to eat? She had a point. And honestly, standing there in my apartment looking at Nicole's business card, I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something just because I wanted to, not because Apex Solutions needed it done. That evening, after Sarah headed back to school, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened a beer, sat down at my kitchen table, and really thought about what I wanted my life to look like. For 14 years, I'd been Ryan Foster, Senior Infrastructure Director. I got up every morning, drove to the same office, dealt with the same problems, reported to the same people. It was stable, it was predictable, and it was slowly killing me. The cardiac episode wasn't really about stress. It was about spending 14 years trying to be someone else's idea of successful while forgetting what actually mattered to me. You want to know what mattered to me? Solving problems that nobody else could solve. Building systems that actually worked instead of just looking good on paper. Working with people who respected what I brought to the table instead of treating me like a replaceable part in their machine. At Apex, I'd been doing the first two, but definitely not the third. I picked up my laptop and started doing what I should have done months ago. I looked up Harper Industries, really looked them up. Not just the basic stuff you find on their website, but the deep dive, financial reports, industry analysis, employee reviews on job sites. What I found was interesting. Really interesting. Harper Industries wasn't just Apex's competitor. In a lot of ways, they were what Apex could have been if Jessica Palmer hadn't been so busy playing corporate politics instead of running a business. Their employee retention rate was twice as high as Apex's. Their client satisfaction scores were consistently better. Their financial growth was steady instead of the roller coaster that Apex had been riding for the past few years. But here's the thing that really caught my attention. They were missing something. Their infrastructure division was solid, but it wasn't exceptional. They had good people doing good work, but they didn't have anyone with the kind of client relationships that take decades to build. They didn't have someone like me. I spent about 3 hours reading everything I could find about Harper's strategic direction, their expansion plans, their competitive positioning. By the time I closed the laptop, I had a pretty clear picture of where I could fit into their organization, and it wasn't as some mid-level director reporting to people who didn't understand what I did. The next morning, I called the number on Nicole's business card. Harper Industries, this is Michelle speaking. Hi, Michelle. This is Ryan Foster. Nicole Harper told me to call. There was a pause, then a shift in her tone that told me she'd been expecting this call. Mr. Foster, Ms. Harper has been hoping to hear from you. Are you available to come in tomorrow morning? I think I am, I said. Excellent. How about 10 a.m.? I'll have someone meet you in the lobby. After I hung up, I sat there for a minute thinking about what I was about to do. For 14 years, I'd been loyal to Apex Solutions. I'd turned down other opportunities, other offers, other chances to see what else was out there. And where had that loyalty gotten me? A text message termination while lying in a hospital bed. You know what? Sometimes loyalty needs to be earned, not just expected. And Apex Solutions had stopped earning mine a long time ago. I spent the rest of that day doing something I hadn't done in years. I updated my resume. Not the kind of resume you send when you're desperate for any job, but the kind you create when you know exactly what you're worth and you're not willing to settle for less. 14 years of building systems, managing teams, solving problems, and keeping clients happy. When you write it all down like that, it's pretty impressive what you can accomplish when people actually let you do your job. By the time I finished, I wasn't thinking about this as starting over. I was thinking about it as finally getting started. Walking into Harper Industries the next morning felt like stepping into a completely different world. You know how some office buildings just feel heavy the moment you walk in? Like the air itself is stressed out? That was Apex Solutions every single day for 14 years. Harper's lobby was nothing like that. Clean, modern, but not in that cold corporate way. People were moving around with purpose, but they weren't rushing around like their hair was on fire. Nobody looked like they were about to have a panic attack over some arbitrary deadline. Michelle met me at the reception desk. Professional, warm, efficient. The kind of person who actually seemed to enjoy her job instead of just enduring it. Mr. Foster? Ms. Harper is ready for you. The elevator ride up to the executive floor gave me a chance to think about what I was about to do. I'd been working for other people's companies my entire career, following other people's strategies, implementing other people's visions, cleaning up other people's mistakes. What if this time was different? What if this time I got to be part of building something instead of just maintaining it? Nicole's office was on the corner with windows that looked out over the city. When Michelle knocked and we walked in, Nicole was standing by those windows, hands in her pockets, looking like she owned not just the building but everything you could see from it. Ryan. She turned and smiled, and just like in the hospital, she had this way of making you feel like you were exactly where you were supposed to be. I'm glad you came. I'm glad you asked, I said, and I meant it. She gestured to a conference table by the windows. Sit. Let's talk about the future. For the next hour, Nicole laid out something I hadn't expected. This wasn't a job interview. This wasn't even a job offer. It was a partnership proposal. "Here's what I'm thinking," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "Harper Industries is solid, but we're missing something. We're missing the kind of deep client relationships that you don't build overnight. We're missing someone who can walk into a room and have the CTO immediately relax because they know their problems are about to get solved." I opened the folder. Inside were organizational charts, financial projections, strategic plans, all centered around creating a new division, Infrastructure Solutions, with me running it. "You're not offering me a job," I said. "No," Nicole agreed. "I'm offering you a chance to build something, your own division, your own team, your own client relationships, with the backing and resources of Harper Industries, but with the autonomy to do things the way you know they should be done." This was bigger than anything I'd imagined. At Apex, I'd been a senior director in someone else's vision. Here, Nicole was offering to let me create my own vision. "What about my non-compete?" I asked. Nicole smiled. "Ryan, you were terminated without cause while recovering from a medical emergency. Any lawyer worth his degree will tell you that non-compete is worth less than the paper it's printed on." We spent another hour going through the details: salary, equity participation, team-building budget, client transition strategies. Everything was not just fair, it was generous, more than generous. But the best part wasn't the money. The best part was the respect. Nicole wasn't just offering me a job, she was acknowledging what I'd built over 14 years and asking me to build something even better. When I left that meeting, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: excitement. Not the nervous, stressed-out kind of excitement that comes from trying to avoid disaster. The good kind. The kind that comes from knowing you're about to do something that actually matters. That afternoon, I did something I probably shouldn't have done, but couldn't resist. I checked my email. 17 messages from clients. 17. All asking variations of the same question. "Ryan, we heard you're no longer with Apex. What's going on?" The one that really got to me was from Bob Morrison at Morrison Logistics. We'd worked together for almost 10 years. His message was short. "Hey Ryan, heard some rumors. Call me when you get a chance. We need to talk." I called him. "Bob, it's Ryan." "Jesus, Ryan, what the hell happened?" "Kevin Palmer called here yesterday saying he was taking over your accounts. Kid sounds like he barely knows how to turn on a computer." That's when I realized what was really happening at Apex. Jessica wasn't just replacing me. She was replacing me with her son, a 26-year-old with an MBA and about 6 months of actual IT experience. "It's a long story, Bob, but I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine." I told him about Harper Industries, about the opportunity to build something new, about finally getting to work with people who understood that good business was about relationships, not just quarterly reports. "Well," Bob said when I finished, "when you get this new thing set up, give me a call." Morrison Logistics is always interested in working with people who actually know what they're doing. By the end of that week, I'd gotten similar calls from 8 other clients, 8 major accounts that represented about 60% of my old portfolio at Apex. And then the real news started coming in. My old colleague Tony called me Friday afternoon. "Ryan, you need to hear this. Kevin Palmer crashed the Morrison Logistics server trying to install some security update he found on Google. 3 days of downtime. Bob Morrison is furious." Then another call. "The Delta Ridge project is completely stalled. Kevin doesn't understand the legacy integration requirements. Sarah Kim is asking for your personal number." By the end of the week, word was getting around the industry that Apex Solutions was having some serious operational issues. Nothing official, nothing public, just the kind of whispers that travel fast in specialized fields where everyone knows everyone else. I signed with Harper Industries on Monday morning. By Wednesday, I was in my new office building my new team. By Friday, I had 3 former Apex clients asking for meetings. And that's when I got the call I'd been expecting but hoping wouldn't come. Jessica Palmer. My phone buzzed with her name, and for the first time in 14 years, I smiled when I saw it. "Hello, Jessica," I answered. "Ryan, we need to talk." "No," I said, still smiling. "We really don't." And I hung up. You know what the best part of this whole thing turned out to be? It wasn't the revenge, though that felt pretty good. It wasn't even the money, though that was nice too. It was finally understanding that loyalty is a two-way street. For 14 years, I'd been loyal to a company that saw me as disposable. Now I was working with people who saw me as indispensable. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is getting fired from the wrong job so you can find the right one.